So greetings everyone, welcome to today's program. My name is Warren Stokes and I'm going to be your host and presenter today. We've got a very awesome topic, and that is going through the best practices for effectively managing your contacts. And this will also include both company data and contact data. We're going to be doing this through Profit, which is, I'm sure you all know, an Outlook embedded CRM that you guys have invested in. And the purpose of today's training session is to really give you some hands-on techniques and best practices. And I'll be demonstrating all of the concepts as we go through this in a live environment here. So it should be a lot of fun. And again, welcome to the program. The concepts that we're going to go through today starts with kind of understanding why this is so important. And really, one of the main reasons is that good CRM data starts with good contact data, and there's a variety of reasons for that we'll cover. But one of them, very importantly, is that the contact data flows through all the other CRM records. So simply by creating a useful, clean contact, you'll find that the rest of the data is enhanced and automatically populated, especially in the company record, as you'll see. Another reason for having good, effective contact data is that it provides for some very useful, what I call taxonomy, which is just the ability to categorize and classify your contacts and sort and filter and slice and dice them in different ways for different purposes. It's all pretty straightforward, but again, a lot of that goes back to the contact data. And another aspect of this is that if you think about it, contact data is actually one of the most valuable assets that your company has, especially sales contacts and customer contacts. So every time you build a contact, it's something that adds a lot of value to your company. One of the unique things about Profit is that it captures and centralizes your sales contacts. So the way you're all set up is that if you create a contact in Profit, it is a centralized database, and those contacts then become part of your company's central database of sales contacts. All you really have to do is create an Outlook contact, but I'm going to give you a number of ways to do that. Doing it through the Profit user interface is the most desirable way, typically, because we have, as you'll see, we have some nice features for, duplicate detection and things like that. But there are a number of ways that you can create contacts. And a very useful thing about Profit and how it deals with the contact data is it synchronizes your contacts across all your devices for all your users. That is, unless of course you're using Outlooks and marking them as private, which is something I'll get into as we go through this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go through fairly briefly what we're going to cover, and then I'll switch over and we'll just show you how to do all that in a live demonstration here. And again, if you've just joined the call, welcome. And we are also, you can use the chat box, the chat feature to ask questions, or if you'd like, you can also just ask them, just shout out if you have a question as we go. So one of the key concepts is capturing contact data. Here's what I suggest, and you think about it, it's just logic, good logic. Think about the things you really need in a contact record. And by the way, just in case just for terminology's sake, when we say contact record, it's the record of a person. The company record is separate, as you'll see. But simple things like just having the full name, the email address, phone number, and company, if applicable, creates a useful contact. Of course, you can have things in addition to that, like job title, address, city, state, zip, all which helps you with your classification and categorization and just knowing more about the contact. And things that are nice to have are things like the website of the contact. You can use categories in Outlook or Profit, maybe a photo. It's a handy thing to have on an Outlook contact. And then Profit adds 20 customizable fields, which you guys have already been using, and things like type of contact, maybe LinkedIn profile might be one of your fields, hobbies and other things. But those are created and managed by your company. I'm just giving you some examples of some common use of the customizable fields. And one really handy thing is that when a contact is created in Profit, it creates the company record automatically, and it associates additional contacts with that company all automatically. And in the company record, there's 72 customizable fields, and we'll be looking at that in a little more depth there as well. So there's three real easy ways to create contacts, although arguably there's a lot more than just three. But one of them is to create contacts from inbound emails. I'll be showing you that. It's pretty handy. You may already know how to do it. You just basically drag and drop the email over the people or contact folder icon. The nice thing about that is it starts populating the contact automatically with the first and last name and email address, and then you can drag and address and title and other things from the signature if there is one in the email. So I'll show you how to do that. You can also create contacts from your phone. There's a lot of ways you can do that. One of them would be getting an inbound call, and you may decide to create a contact from your phone from that inbound call. You may know that that's one of the options on your phone. Again, it's important to put enough useful information in there, get their full name, their email address and phone number and company at a minimum. You can use the native contacts in your phone, or you can actually create them in the Profit mobile app. I won't spend a whole lot of that time on that in today's session. We'll have future training on that. And then there's three easy ways to create. Here's another way to create contacts: is you can import them from Excel. Profit has a nice import utility. Not sure if you guys have used that yet, but you certainly could. All of the fields that go into an Excel spreadsheet can be automatically populated into the Profit and/or Outlook contacts. Another thing to think about is the fields in the contact record can be used to help kind of manage your contact list by various types of priorities, like maybe the date that they were created. It's useful to go in and see how many contacts you've created this month or this week. By category, either by using the custom fields in Profit or through the Outlook category function. Things just like type of contact. Maybe you want to run a list of all of the buyers in Spokane or something like that. And again, I'm going to show you all this. Geography, which is part of the Outlook contact form natively, is like city, state, zip code, things like that. And another useful one is by last modified date. Maybe you just want to go through and make some outbound calls to clients and customers you haven't talked to recently. And you can also use Profit to do some what I call little mini email blasts. Profit's also integrated with Constant Contact and MailChimp, but if anyone's interested in talking about that at a later date, just let me know. And we're not going to get deep into this, but Profit does have some ability to set some automated follow-up. That's actually a future session, but just to kind of set the stage for that, there's some very useful ways to just set follow-up with the contact as well. The duplicate checker is a really key feature that we've developed in Profit, and one of the concepts there is it just prevents you from inadvertently creating duplicates of contacts. And there's also merge features that lets you, if you find a duplicate contact in Profit, you can easily dedupe them by merging them together, and there's business logic built into that. So one of the things that you guys have already done, but I'm going to cover it anyway, is that you might go back and look through this, because if you're using Profit contacts and you're keeping them in your default Outlook folder, you can basically make contacts personal just by checking the private checkbox or the lock symbol in an open Outlook contact. You can also mass assign categories if that's something you want to do. And you can clean up things like company names. You know how you get different spellings. Sometimes it's the same company, but one spelled Inc., the other might be, LLC, and one might not have any suffix whatever. So you can actually do some data preparation or data cleanup in Outlook, and you can also do it in Profit. We'll cover some of those. I'm going to just go ahead from here, and rather than getting deep into the import, we're just going to go through, and I'm going to switch the screen over, and we'll start showing you how to do all of this in a live setting here. So as you can see, I'm basically just here in Outlook right now, and as I'm sure you all know, Profit lives in Outlook. So let's first let's talk about what we mean by creating a good contact. So a good contact has a minimum set of information: first name and last name, phone number, email address, and company name are what I recommend to just have the discipline to capture those fields at a minimum. Extra credit for maybe getting a website, Physical address, of course, is very useful, so you can sort and filter by that, but you may not always have it. And of course, you can always add these things later. Photos, if you don't know how to do the photo feature in an Outlook contact, it's pretty simple. You have to have the photo saved on your computer, and then you just click on that little icon of a person. Let's see if I have one that doesn't. Yeah, here's one. It just be, unless you've added a photo, it'll just have a little kind of avatar figure there. You click on that, you go to your photos, and you can easily add a photo. By the way, the nice thing about that is that if you have added a photo, if that person calls you on your phone, for example, you can actually see their photo come in. So I'll just show you by adding a contact photo here. So there's a contact photo that I just added to the Outlook contact. But in any event, all we're talking about is some real basic stuff right now, how to create a useful contact. Now, what's really handy with Profit, as I mentioned earlier, is that the data in the contact flows through to the company record, which is automatically created in Profit. Now, you can actually open the company record from the Outlook contact. I don't know if you've ever seen this little feature, but there's in the contact, once you install Profit, there's a Profit ribbon, and there's a number of things you can do from this contact, and I'll just show you a few of them while we're still talking about just the contact record itself. One of them would be to open the company record. The company record is the record that has one or more contacts associated with it, and then there are the customizable fields that can be used to define other things about the company. And I'll give you an example of a company record that has more than one contact associated with it. Here's a good example. I can open the company record here for Brad, and you'll see that we have a number of contacts associated with it. And there's an example of how Profit will aggregate those contacts together. Here's a contact also associated with the company, Pitt International. And the point of bringing this up is that a contact can be associated with more than one company if you wish. For example, Tiger Woods has his own company, but he joined, this is just an example, but he might have joined Pitt International as a consultant or something, right? So again, contacts flow through to the company level, and that's the important thing. So let's talk a little bit about creating contacts. I'm going to start with a very useful way to create a contact, and that's from an inbound email. So I got an email, in this case it's from this Edward Fitzgerald, and I just look at that contact or that email, and I say, you know, I want to create a contact out of this. Looks like there could be some potential business involved here, or what have you. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm just going to, with my cursor, I'm going to drag that email down to my people folder, and you'll see that what Profit does is it pops up a duplicate checker to see if that contact is already in the database. In this case, it is, so I could just open that contact that's already been created. But if they weren't, you just click Create New Contact here with this button, and it's warning me that a similar contact already exists, as you see, but I'm going to say yes for the sake of this demonstration, and now I'm building a new contact card. So in this case, you can see that the full name, first and last name, are automatically populated along with the email address and how it's going to be filed. But there's some useful information, in this case in the signature line, such as the address, so you don't have to type it in if there is information like the address in the email. And notice the email has automatically been captured in the contact record, by the way. Now, watch what I'm going to do. I'm just going to highlight the section that I want to drag over to my address, and I'm just going to literally, with my cursor, drag it over there. So I easily created the address in that case. Here's the company name. All right, and so basically anything that you want to drag in from that email, you can just populate the Outlook contact with it. And if you use categories, this would be a good time to assign categories to it. If anyone has any questions about categories, feel free to ask. We can drill into it deeper. But basically, all I'm doing is I'm creating a new contact. Now, notice that the company record has automatically been created. And if I click this company button here, you'll see that it brings up the company record for that contact. In this case, you'll see it's called Win Technology Group. So that's one easy way to create a contact, is from an inbound email. And that's probably one of the most popular ways from, since we all get so many emails. And again, you can see if the contact already exists and so forth. Another way to do it is from your phone. We covered that earlier, but let's talk a little bit about how you can create contacts from an import. I won't go deep into this, but it is an important thing, and Profit has an import utility. We provide training on this. It's not terribly difficult, but I would say don't attempt this unless you've talked to your IT department and decided that that's something you really want to do. But I'm going to show you, all you really do is go into the import utility and you browse for the file that you're going to import. In this case, here's some contact data, and I'm going to add that to my import session. And now I'm going to drag and drop the fields to match them up. It's called field mapping. For example, first name drags over to first name. Company goes over to company, obviously. Some of them have slightly different terminology, like contact address is just address in the system. And you can also auto map any fields that have the same name. And once you've done this, there's some dedupe options, because again, we have prevention tools so that you don't inadvertently create duplicates, and it does a validation and imports that data. But I want to emphasize, please do not import data unless you've had a discussion with your manager or with the IT department, because it will populate data right into the master database. So that's the basic ways to create contacts. And once you've got them in Profit, you will then start having various ways that you can manage your contacts. And a simple one, I'll use a couple of examples. Here's one that's the created date field. Now notice I'm in Profit and there's a lot of columns that I could choose from, but I could also drag and drop these columns just so I can have them in a different location in my view here. So if you notice what I'm doing, drag and drop is just moving the column to wherever I want it. By the way, if I wanted to save those changes, like the column locations, I can just right click and say save changes to view, or simply hit F12. That will save the changes so that if I navigate out of this list or this view, those changes will be retained. But let's go back to a useful way to basically manage your contacts, in this case by created date. So you'll see that the columns work kind of like very similar to how an Excel spreadsheet works. You can sort by any column, so it's useful to sort by a created date. And that, like for example, I can see that here's all the contacts that were created in May. In fact, it even shows you a little count of them. 52 contacts created in May 2019. I'm sorry, modified. Created date is right here. But you can also add filters. So maybe I want to add a filter here by just clicking on the little funnel icon. It brings up, very similar to Excel, it brings up a filter. In this case, it's a date field, so it gives me some options. I like to use often the between function, because that will let me see, for example, how many contacts I created from May 1st to today. So out of 52, you can see that 23 of them were created in that date range. You can see the number down here in the lower left. There's a little summary there. You can also just highlight records and it'll do a count as well, by the way. So that's a very simple thing. To clear the filter, you click on that icon and just simply say clear filter. Similarly, you can use the modified date to help you get organized. You might want to go back into the oldest modified date, as I mentioned earlier, and perhaps what I want to do is I want to just start doing some outreach to a list of customers or prospects. So I just sorted it by oldest modified date. So here's one that hadn't been touched or updated since April 1st. And it might be that you're just making some calls. And as you probably know, there's some activities that are predefined. Your company controls this list, but it's something as simple as, left a voicemail, or had a meeting and took some notes, or I did an on-site visit and we talked about the new programs, or what have you. You do not have to type anything in because these activities are recorded automatically. But the point I'm getting at is I'm going through an organized approach to my list, in this case, in essence, a call list. So here's the next oldest one, the next oldest one, the next oldest one, and so forth. So that would be just one example of managing your contacts by the priority, in this case, the oldest modified date. Another thing that you can do is manage contacts by something like geography. So I'll show you an example. I'll go into my entire contact list, and we'll do a little bit of geographical filtering and sorting. So I have 2,474 contacts that I consider to be my active contacts. And by the way, these views, you'll see how I do this, but once you've created a filtered or sorted list, you can then save that view by just saying Tools, Save View As, and give it a name, like Warren's active contacts. And I define that as those contacts. In fact, I could even show you the filter by clicking on the filter button that were either modified since September, created or modified since September 30th of last year. So I have 2,474 contacts that meet that criteria. But let's organize these by geography, let's say. Let's say that I wanted to see all of the contacts in a certain state. Easy to do. You can just do a quick search or just visually identify it. But let's say I want California. So and you can just check the boxes, and you notice how it can take different spellings and abbreviations by just displaying those, very similar to Excel. So in this case, I just created a list and it shows. I've got a little problem with some audio. I'm going to mute all right now. So use the chat feature if you have a question. There we go. All right. And if you are having any problem hearing me, just use the chat feature, and I appreciate that you'd let me know. But what we just did is we created a simple filter by the state. Now, if I wanted to narrow that down further, you can create as many filters as you like. For example, I could say, okay, I just want to see all of the contacts that I have in Los Angeles. All right, so that would be a quick filter that I could add. Notice how I just started typing part of the word Los Angeles here, and it located that for me. So now I've added 2 filters. They're all in California, and they're all in the city of Los Angeles. So I have 15 contacts that are in Los Angeles, California. I'll show you a handy little thing. If I wanted to send an email out or a mailing out to everyone on that list, so these are all maybe my contacts in a certain city and state, I can just right click and either launch a mailing. This just launches the Microsoft Mail Merge feature, so you can do letters, cards, envelopes, labels. You know, if you're sending out gifts or letters or any type of thing, like old snail mail, believe it or not, people still do that. But a very common thing to do is you can also use Profit there's 2 different approaches to doing group emails. One of them is Profit does integrate with MailChimp and Constant Contact right out of the box. This requires some setup, but it's a functionality that exists without any customization per se, just a little setup. So some of you may choose to use that feature. Again, this just allows you to select contacts in your Profit database and subscribe them to different lists and or campaigns. Having said that, Profit also has its own little email blast feature where you can select contacts and decide to send a group email. Now, this presumes that these are contacts that are presumed to be opted in. In other words, these are contacts from which they're either clients or prospects that you've had ongoing communications with, is the idea. So it's not used for just really blind mass emailing. You would use one of those marketing tools for that. But it's very handy because I can just very easily create an email to this list of people on the fly. And notice that the first one that just comes up is just the Outlook email where I'm going to compose the content. Now I could just type in the content, or you might actually want to use templated content. I can insert content from a template. I'm going to show you how I did that here in just a moment. But right now I'm just constructing the email. I typed in or added a template content. When I click send, everyone is going to get a personalized email from me to them right through Outlook. So it is a personal email. It's not blind copied, and it does go through Outlook. This is really more intended for fairly small lists of people that you're reaching out to, 5, 10, 50, 100. Again, consult with your IT department if you want to start using that feature, because companies sometimes put rules on how many emails you can send and things like that. But it's a handy feature, and it's part of the contact management aspect of Profit. And all I did to kind of review is I started with a large list, and I added, in this case, 2 different filters, city and state, but you can also do things like categories or type of contact. So if you wanted to even narrow it down further, so if I'm going to remove my city filter here and my state filter, and I'll show you an example of creating a list by type of contact. So I'm going to see how I'm just clearing those two filters. Now I'm back to my 2,474 contacts. But let's just say I wanted to look up all of a certain type of contact. Now here's where you can either use Outlook categories, and notice if I open one of these contacts, you can use the Outlook categories if you wish. Nothing wrong with that. But Profit adds 20 customizable fields to the contact so that you can use those as filters. Notice here, one of the fields is typically type of contact. Now your company will have created their own lists, their own fields like this, but directionally speaking, the idea is the same. So you can have different things like, are they a vendor? Are they a current client? Are they a prospect or what have you? And maybe you want to have role as one of the fields so that you could say, I want to look at all of the purchasing managers in Spokane, for example. Well, that would be something you could do. Now, how you do that is really quite simple. When I'm in a view like this, here's my type of contact field. As you can see, I got a lot of different contact types. But if I wanted to type in and say only current clients, I can just start typing that in or select the box. And now out of my 2,400, you can see that I have 243 of these are clients. Pretty obvious how that would be useful, right? So those are some of the functions and examples of what we mean by managing your contacts by different criteria. And again, created date, last modified date, category, type of contact, geography such as city or state, and the ability to then perform functions like mailing or maybe email blasts from it. Pretty awesome. So now we're going to segue into a couple of, well, I do want to explain something before I move off the contacts. And I get this question a lot, and that is, what kind of notes should I put in a contact versus the company? For the most part, your ongoing notes and call log is going to be happening in either the company or opportunity record, but you very likely will put some notes when you first create a contact. I suggest putting in where you met the person is useful, maybe their bio or something like that. Don't get carried away, because remember, this person could move to another company and you don't want those notes to go with them to that company. So we're going to talk more about that in the company record here in just a moment. So again, the notes that you put in a contact are usually just the preliminary, where you met them or a few things about them. And you remember that I said the company records are created automatically whenever you create contacts. And you can also create company records either manually or through imports and such as well. But the company record then is where you're going to keep most of your interactions with, just say, day-to-day interactions with a customer. So in this case, you can see I'm in a company record, Pitt International, and you can see on May 23rd, I did an on-site visit and we discussed new products and such. And this is just simply keeping track of what your activities are. It's basically your call log. You can also do this from your phone, by the way. It has the same function of capturing notes. The difference with the phone is you can actually use dictation to put those notes in there, and I'm going to show you that in a moment. But here's where I could say, I called, let's just say I called Brad and we set up a meeting for next week or something like that. So these are just notes that I'm typing in just to kind of keep track of where I'm at. And so I'm going to make that a phone call. Again, these activities are defined by your company, but simple things like defaults or phone call notes, voicemail, meeting notes, and so on are pretty standard ways to set that up. All right, so now we're starting to get the feel for how this becomes a very useful record. Now, some people prefer to just leave this in a list view, and you can access the notes and add notes from the list view. But just so you know, you could also open that record, and you can make it any size that you want on your screen, and you can also do it in a full screen or an open record, same idea. So that's just the company record that's open. So keeping track of your touches, if you will, with the customer is one of the basic things that you would want to do. Now, you'll also notice, we're not going to get deep into opportunities in this call, but you could see if there are any opportunities associated with that customer. In this case, there have been 11, kind of a history of all those opportunities that we've been working on. And we have an upcoming seminar on opportunity management, so we'll cover that in more detail later. And you can keep track of activities. You can have documents linked to the customer. And I mentioned I'd cover this briefly. You can set up automation. Again, another future session. We're going to be covering more on the automation towards the end of our series here. So stay tuned for that. The point is that this is a centralized database, and this is where you can also create filtered lists. For example, I have a view called Warren's accounts. It's obvious why I'd want that. I don't need to be mucking around in other people's accounts. And by the way, you can also place restrictions on that. I'm not sure if you want to or have, but you could, as to who can access what accounts. But it's just a way to organize my accounts so that, for example, I could see all of my accounts in California. Simple filter that I've added here. And when I click on this little, I didn't cover this earlier. Once you've created filters and lists, you can edit them or just see what the filters are by clicking on this little red pencil and paper icon, and you say click on additional filtering, and so you can see how that these are accounts in California, meaning that the account flag is set to yes, they are in California, and I've added two different ways to even capture California, spelled out and just with the abbreviation. And you can see that that's basically what's creating this filtered list here, accounts in California. So let's continue. One of the things that we wanted to talk about is kind of the dupe checker, and another way to manually create companies or contacts for that matter will be through this function that says new here. So if you're in the company list and you want to create a new company manually, you can simply click new company and you can fill it out. But the best practice is to create companies by creating the first contact with them. So I'm going to go and show you by saying, if I say create new contact, it brings up the duplicate checker. But here's what I wanted to show you, is that the best practice is to actually type in the company name first, start typing it in, and I'm using WCP Solutions. And notice how as I type that in, it starts locating records that all have that company name in them. Now, the useful part of this is if you have companies that have slight misspellings, that's something you can use the dupe cleanup feature, and I'll show you that in a bit. But notice how I can see that all of these are spelled exactly the same way. So now I know that I can just continue with that contact record build by just using the same spelling. And then I can put in Bill Smith or whatever, and I would create a new contact, and it's going to automatically be associated with the right company. Create new contact, and now there's a Bill Smith with WCP Solutions. So again, all I'm doing is I'm showing you the best practice is to enter go through the create contact interface and type in the company name first, and that's how you're going to be able to see the different spellings or company nomenclature that you might want to use. A very useful thing might be, hey, you know what? I just want to create a contact that's similar to this one, so I don't have to even do a lot of typing on all of that ancillary stuff. In fact, it'll pick up the exact spelling of that company name, and notice how it put in the address, a default phone number, the company name, and now I add the contact name. So I'm going to kind of back up and show you what I did there again, because it's a very, very handy feature. So all I did is I say I'm going to create a new contact in Profit here in the contact manager, and you say new contact. And I typed in WCP, started to type in WCP Solutions. It brought them all up, all my contacts that I have for WCP Solutions right now. And I say I right click while I'm selected on the contact that I want. Let's say there were some different WCP companies, and they might have different names and they're different companies. So I right click and I selected create a similar contact. And that's how it auto-filled most of all those fields except the name. Pretty cool. Now, I don't want to get give you too many ways to do things, but the question comes up often, well, how do I add a contact to a company? Well, it's remarkably easy. When you're in a company record, you have to open the company record, and by default, you're in the Contacts tab, and I simply click the Add button. And the first thing it's going to show me are all the contacts that are already associated with that company. And maybe I just want to create a new contact associated with the company, which you can do. But let's say that this is a contact from another company, but I want to associate it with this company. So I can type in another company name, and you can see in this case, Dome Construction is the one I want, and I want to add a mark to that. So I can add contact from another company to this company record. So I can also remove this contact. Maybe they go and they join another company. And again, that's why you want to keep your notes in the company record primarily. Now let's talk a little bit about merging contacts. I'm going to go in and we're going to create another contact, let's say from an email, and we'll intentionally create a duplicate, and then I'll show you how we dedupe those. You don't really have to worry about this too much, but if you ever find that there's duplicates in a list, you can easily dedupe them, and I'm going to show you that. So first thing, I have a very clean database, so I have to go in and create a duplicate. I'm going to use this drag and drop feature again. We're just going to create another Edward Fitzgerald, and if for whatever reason someone created a contact that already existed, just like you see here, a little sleepy that morning, too early, didn't have your Starbucks, and you click create new contact anyway, not the end of the world. And maybe this one you don't even remember, you didn't even put the company name in or some other things like that. So it's not an exact duplicate, but what Profit will check for, by the way, to determine if it's a duplicate is the full name and either the email address or the phone number match, and Profit will assume it's a dupe and it'll warn you. But in any event, I'm going to go ahead and create this duplicate contact, and you'll see what happens here in a moment. Actually, so I need to say add new contact. That's an additional level of prioritization, and apply. And now what you're going to see is in my contact manager, we'll find that there's two Edward Fitzgeralds. Okay, so there's one, but by the way, here's another tip for you. In the search view box, that just searches that list for any criteria, first name, last name, company name, or any of these other fields. But notice what I can do is I can change this to an advanced search, just a little drop down. This bypasses the search list that I'm in and allows me to search my entire database. And I'm just going to start typing in Edward Fitzgerald, and you'll see that I should have a duplicate, and here it is. Now, so I've noticed that I have this duplicate. I did a search, and there's two Edward Fitzgeralds in here. So it's actually pretty obvious that this one doesn't have much information in it. But what you can do is, if you're unsure, well, first of all, the merge feature that I'm going to show you has business logic built into. But if you just want to be absolutely certain that one of these contacts overrides the other, you simply open it and save and close it, and that becomes a master contact. Okay, and now I'm going to dedupe them by just simply selecting both contacts, and there could be 3 or 4, you never know. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to say merge contacts. Now what Profit will do, it'll apply the business logic that I described, and it's going to basically merge these two contacts together, populate empty fields with populated fields, and there we go. So that's a very useful thing that you can do to dedupe contacts. The same thing applies to companies when you might want to have, if companies were in your database, and I'm going to use the example of a company that was very similar spelling. So let me go into my Hollywood accounts here, and I can see that I have, let's just see. Well, I don't really have any close duplicates, but let's say there is a Pitt International and a Pitt Products LLC. So you could actually select them, do the same thing, and just simply merge them together. And again, the most recent one that you saved and closed will override any fields on top of that. Pretty awesome. So we're going to wrap up here. The goal here is to keep this to within under an hour, so we're 45 minutes into it. I haven't seen any questions coming through the chat box. So let me just kind of wrap up and do a quick summary of basically what we've learned today. And at the core of it all is in contact management, you're really managing two types of records, the individual contact and the company. But remember how important the contact is. And you guys can discuss what your minimum criteria might be. But I always say you must have full name, first and last name, email address, phone, and company name. And try to get their job title and address, city, state, and zip so you have more ability to sort and filter and slice and dice. And to the extent that it's helpful to you or your organization, capturing website and other things like that are useful. And I believe you're going to find the customizable fields in Profit very useful so that you can define your contacts by other fields other than that is found in the Outlook contact form. Again, type of contact, hobbies, role, things of that nature. So for example, to use the same example, you want to make a list of all the purchasing managers in Spokane or what have you. And remember that the company record is automatically created and the data from the contact flows through it. So it'll automatically populate like the address, city, state, and zip, and it'll link contacts to it automatically. And to the extent that you may want to explore this further, remember there's customizable fields. There's several simple ways to create contacts in Profit. You can do it right from an inbound email, as I just showed you. You can create them from your phone through the mobile app. You can also create contacts from imports. And the main concept here, and what makes it all very useful, is there's a central database that you can then define various criteria so that it will help you in your day-to-day sales or customer interactions, and sorting them by important functions like when was I last modified that contact, or how many created date, how many contacts have you created this month, last month, and so on, or geography. So we're going to talk about automation in a future session, but I want to leave my contact information up here. Many of you already know me, but I'm very easy to reach, so feel free to jot down my email address and phone number or get it from one of your colleagues. And I want to thank everybody for investing the time to learn more about Profit, and have a great day.